Alright, so here are the 5 reasons the US is desperate to pass the Christian Genocide in Nigeria bill. Isn't it ironic that the same US who confessed to sponsoring Boko Haram to kill countless Christians is suddenly desperate to champion the fight against Christian genocide in Nigeria? Well, here's what they didn't tell you. Just last month, during the war against Iran, the US had less than 2 months' supply of processed raw earth minerals, also known as REMs. For context, 78% of the entire US military weapons programs depends on these rare earth minerals. From their precision-guided missiles to their highly advanced stealth fighter jets, their core defense system for spotting incoming missiles. But the US depends on China, who controls 80% of the entire global rare earth mineral mining and refining for their supply. Now, countering that very reality is the true intent of the US. Try guessing who was the 5th largest global producer of rare earth minerals in 2024. Exactly, it was Nigeria. And it is no coincidence that the Middle Belt, comprising Nasarawa, Kogi, Benue, the very hotspot for these rare earth minerals, is plagued with extreme terrorism. So the US, framing this as a Christian genocide, gives them justification to invade and access these minerals. Before you think this is one of those controversy theories, go read the very official report that was submitted to the White House by Riley Moore, the member of Congress spearheading the bill titled Ending Christian Genocide in Nigeria. The very first recommendation is to counter adversaries in the region, including the Chinese Communist Party and the Russian Federation. What has the death of innocent Christians and Muslims in the north got to do with the Chinese Communist Party? You're starting to ask the right questions. None. Goes on to demand that Nigeria patronizes the US for its military equipment instead of Russia, which sounds harmless at first until you remember that the US refused to sell weapons to Goodluck Jonathan when he needed it the most to entirely wipe out Boko Haram, which eventually damaged his chances of being re-elected in favor of Buhari. But that is a story for another day. Now, this led to Jonathan employing South African mercenaries and Russian fighter jets, and within 3 months they were able to wipe out Boko Haram and reclaim more than 40 different towns and villages. But immediately Buhari, with the help of Obama, came into power, he ended the contract with the mercenaries and plunged Nigeria into the endless killings you witness till date. Now, it is those same Russian equipments they want you to abandon so you can depend once more on the US. But it gets even worse. The recommendation includes the reintegration of said militant terrorists back into the Nigerian society. That is their brilliant plan. Governor Zulum of Borno State has cried out that repentant Boko Haram terrorists map out societies and go back to the terrorists to inform them of their next targets, effectively acting as spies. And finally, remember the news of over 30,000 Iranian protesters that were killed by the Iranian government, which the Iranian government came out to deny and accused the US and Israel of planting CIA and Mossad agents amongst protesters with weapons to kill their protesters so they can blame it on the Iranian government. Nobody believed the Iranian government until Donald Trump himself confessed to having sent weapons to the Iranian protesters. Now, that incident resulted to over 3,000 innocent deaths. That is an example of US boots on the ground for you. As always, don't trust, verify.